And now, your host, Couch Tomato!
Hey, I'm Couch Tomato and I'm joined by
Hulk.
Welcome to Stuff for Movie Buffs. And today we're talking...
Sorry to bother you.
All right, perfect. Sorry to bother you guys. Before we get started, if you want to support the show, YouTube channel, or anything that we do here, feel free to head over to our Patreon. Whenever you give whatever amount, you're automatically enrolled into our private group chat. That's where you get to discuss movies like this, movie trailers, movie topics, or anything related to just, geek culture, stuff that we like to talk about with us as well as some of our fans. Secondly, you also have a chance to probably produce a 24 Reasons video. So that's up to you depending on the levels that you give. So head over there and support the show. And let's get into Sorry to Bother You. So if you remember last week, I skipped the theater experience because of my movie pass. And they fixed the situation still. I chose not to see Ant-Man. Wasn't really looking forward to it. And, judging from the feedback from people that I trust, it was something that I could skip. So I'll wait for DVD for that. However, Sorry to Bother You, which is actually one of my most anticipated films. I remember when we talked last week, I said that I wouldn't be surprised if this movie sneaks into my top 5 just because I was so in love with the trailer and the actors attached. So that's what I saw this week.
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer, but I forgot the title of the name. And then when you mentioned it last week, I was like, oh, that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the title stands out to me, but same thing happened to me earlier this year too when somebody had their most anticipated list. And I'm like, Sorry to Bother You, what is that? And I saw the movie poster and I'm like, oh, that's what that movie's called. So the director describes this film as a dark comedy about the world of telemarketing. From the trailer, it looks extremely creative, and it's original because we rarely get films that focus on telemarketing. The only thing I could think of, it's not really telemarketing, but it's sales over the phone, is Wolf of Wall Street. And some of those were the best scenes to me. Yeah. And it's similar to this. I think the best parts in this movie is when they stick to telemarketing. There's something that the main character does where he puts on his white voice. And if you've ever done telemarketing before, you laugh at that joke because number one, it's true. I used to have 3 white voices and a Caribbean voice, and all of them were fire. I was what you call a hammer. Like in this movie, they use another word where they said you're a something like there's something where there's like a certain level of salesman in this film where you want to aspire to be to that. When I was in the telemarketing world, we used to call them hammers. So I was a hammer. And if you've never done telemarketing before, you'll laugh at the white voices because you realize it's true. Like one of the themes in this movie is that Black people are judged by their voices, and or all people are judged by their voices for that matter. So not just that theme, but this movie is well over 90 minutes. So they have enough time to jump into different themes as well. And there's a couple of them I liked. Probably some that I'm not going to say I hate, but I was like just surprised. Like this movie's really weird. Like it's extremely weird. I'll let you know straight up. That trailer only showed you like half the story. Like there's more in this movie that you wouldn't expect. It comes out of left field, just like other dark comedies. Like dark comedies are usually, you need to be high to watch them. So with this one, it's like a stoner movie, but it's also smart in some instances.
Yeah, that's the vibe I got from the trailer. Like it was very like out there. Like you could tell like this movie was not going to hold back. How would you gauge like the comedy? Like did it hit? Because I know sometimes like for me, like I know like especially with certain movies, like sometimes they can go a little too dark where you kind of lose me in a way. Like did you ever get to those points where it's just like, okay, maybe this is just a little too much?
Oh, and by the way, for the fans out there, Hulk didn't see this movie and I didn't it was something that Hulk was kind of on the fence. So it like my reaction to it will probably determine if Hulk goes sees it. So I told him, hey, I'll let you, I'll watch it and I'll kind of, be the pawn and I'll tell you how it is. And similar to you, Hulk, I think a majority of our listening audience hasn't seen this movie either. It's a small film and it was only in select theaters. So it's something that might catch fire over time. So I have a huge responsibility to answer your questions And not only am I answering your questions, but there's people out there that may be on the fence to where I may be able to swing them to the left or to the right. But yeah, so you asked about the comedy. I think the comedy hit, but like you said, dark comedies go real dark. There's a part in this movie where they just it comes out of nowhere, and they may lose some people. So yeah, but I think it happens in the back third of the film, to where I think the first 2/3 of this movie is going to keep you. And I think if you're judging it off of this, a majority of the movie was funny. Even that part at the end, it really didn't bother me after, because I spent a couple of days away from the movie now. I'm like, all right, you know what? It wasn't that bad. But yeah, I just think the humor worked. Like the funniest part in this movie to me is it's like small, subtle stuff. Like, because the people in this movie don't know they're in a movie. So they got like really, really subtle, dry humor. Like they'll say something funny, but they're not waiting for the audience to laugh, because they seem like, okay, they're real people. Like, so they're not really waiting for the laugh track. And there's a compliment contest, which I think I kind of do this with my friends sometimes. Like, instead of like talking about somebody's mom, you just give them a compliment on their worst attribute or something. And there's this scene where you think the music playing and the camera angles, it looked like two characters are going to fight, but instead of fighting, they like compliment the hell out of each other. And I just thought the way that they did that was funny. And I also think just the director's eye, like the reason I wanted to see this movie in the first place, it looked like an Edgar Wright movie. Edgar Wright's my favorite, second favorite director, only behind Quentin Tarantino. And it's because I believe Edgar Wright has the best visuals in the game, you know, so this seemed like his style. And I'm like, okay, this guy used to be a music video director, to where he knows how to be, I don't know, fashionable with his technique. So this movie looks good at all times. So I'm like, all right, you got a guy who has great camera work, and due to the editing, the jokes land. So you're gonna laugh at this movie. Like there's a freestyle scene. I'll probably put top 3 freestyle scenes just behind 8 Mile, and I'm not gonna put it's racist, but it's funny, because if he did that today, I was like, I can't tell you too much, but it's a freestyle scene that's hilarious in this movie. Okay, I'll look forward to seeing that if I watch it. Quick question: what actors like stood out? Yeah, you know, who had like the best performances? You know what's funny? Somebody in this movie is actually becoming typecast. And I don't know if they showed him in the trailer, but it's not a spoiler. The villain in this movie that's Army. You remember Army Hammer? That was supposed to be like a big star. Yeah. He's becoming typecast, because when you think of Army Hammer, what movies do you think of? Social Network. Trying to think what other stuff he did. He's the villain in that. I didn't even think of that. I forgot about that. You think of Lone Ranger, obviously. Yeah, Lone Ranger, obviously. Yeah, but not Lone Ranger. It seems like he's like that new racist guy for Hollywood, because he was in The Birth of a Nation too. Oh yeah. And I swear that's not the only time he played a slave owner. But he's that dude in this movie. That's all I'll say. It's like he may be. I think he could act too, because like now seeing him in all this different stuff like Social Network and stuff, I know Hollywood's not really messing with him anymore. That's why he's doing small independent films, but he's good. I thought Lakeith Stanfield played you know what? Everybody's looking at Michael B. Jordan. I really want to see who's gonna win something like an Oscar first. 'Cause I won't be surprised if Lakeith is that new. Because I'm sorry to say this, but Hollywood only has you could only have like a certain amount of actors at a time. When it comes to diversity, like there's a Denzel for like black people, there's a Jackie Chan for Asian people, and now that switched. But then because I think Steven Yeun from Walking Dead might be that new dude. Oh, he did well in this movie? He's good. And then there's always, okay, you're going to be the female lead in every movie. I remember it was Angelina Jolie for one point. Now it's like Charlize Theron or whatever, to where it's like Hollywood picks one minority for everything. And everybody's looking at Michael B. Jordan like he's that dude. I love Creed too, but I'm looking at Lakeith Stanfield or whatever, because he was in Get Out, so he has a lot of heavy hitters under him. Like he's in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But I like his acting style. And in this film, like he was casted well. Cause when I saw the trailer, I'm like, okay, it don't sound right coming from you. Like, you know what I mean? Cause you sound like you talking the same all the time. But no, like I thought he stood out.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really the only one that really gets time to stand out in this film. Like he has the most stuff to do. I know you want me to say Tessa Thompson. Tessa Thompson's solid. She doesn't do anything too special, but the script doesn't. She's a side character. The script doesn't cause her to do too much.
Okay, gotcha.
And I think everybody looks at but you know, Ghost from
Power.
Yeah, Ghost from Power or whatever. Like he's proven that he can't be typecast because he plays a totally different role in this movie, and it's not what you think. So I thought he was solid. And I'm looking at some of these voices. I'm actually looking at the cast now, and I didn't know David Cross from the Bluth family, extended family. He was the one that made the white voice for Lakeith, which is Cassius's character. I heard Patton Oswalt.
Mm-hmm.
He makes the white voice for Ghost, which is Mr. Blank. So you also got Danny Glover. Danny Glover needs to be in more movies. And I'm a Lethal Weapon fan, so I already know he's that deal.
Yeah.
But he's in this movie for a small portion, and he was solid.
Okay. Any more cameos? That was it?
Really, the only cameo you could say. I don't remember Army being in the trailer. He probably was, but there aren't any surprises. I don't think so. Like everybody that... Wow, I got to go back and look at this movie because I'm looking at some of these characters. I don't remember them being in the movie. I'm looking at this cast. I don't remember seeing Rosario Dawson. And she's showing up in the cast on IMDb. I don't know. Like, I guess people...
Maybe she did a voice or something.
I don't remember. Oh, you know what? I know just who voice she did. All right, this film is solid though.
Okay, because on the site,
it's funny.
Yeah, like the critics have it like at 95, and the audience has it as like 72. Like who?
That extra deviation in price, deviation in you know that 20 point deviation or whatever.
Who has it right?
That's because of that. Nah, it's because of that third part. It alienated some people. Like this movie's over 90 minutes. I personally believe that's a time limit for comedies. Like, unless your Ghostbusters are coming to America, try to keep it short and get out of there. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I didn't look at the runtime, but I felt like I was in the theater longer than I had to be. So they actually have a couple of messages. Remember I told you people are judged by their voices.
Yeah. That's
one. Another thing that I noticed, there's a union element to this. And I agree with this, but the message is unions are out for themselves, which I believe. Because there's a union rep, which is Glenn's character, you know, Walking Dead, Steven.
Yeah.
His name is Squeeze. And basically he does something to the main character where he's shady. So he's out for himself. And I believe like the message is unions are only out for themselves, not necessarily for the people they support. There's also another message, women are hypocrites. There's a female in this movie that hates when certain people do white people voices. But then she does a white person's voice too when she's around like high class people. So I'm guessing that was probably Rosario Dawson's voice that, you know, did it. So that's a message that they put. And there's another message where it's there's only 3 things to watch on TV when it comes to media, and that's reality TV, fake news, and advertisements. So the advertisements part is the part that gets you because it's not in the trailer. And in all honesty, I believe this movie is fire, but the more free time that they gave it, they experimented with more themes, sticking on that advertising policy that they try to present. There's an element in this movie, like I said, that's not in the trailer. Kudos for them for keeping stuff out of the trailer, because I get pissed off when I know the movie just from watching the trailer, which is why I try to stay away from trailers nowadays. Honestly, I didn't like the added element. And I think some of the fans didn't. But to be fair, it's a dark comedy. And all these dark comedies, the director's either high while they're filming or when they're writing the script. Because I could point to elements in Being John Malkovich, which are freaking weird. Super, which is a movie I love, but it's weird. Mm-hmm. The Big Lebowski, people love that movie way more than I do. It's weird at times. So the twist is probably the second weirdest I've ever seen, behind being John Malkovich. I just thought that movie was weird, like really weird, but I saw it when I was younger, so maybe that's why. But if you're high, you're going to love this movie. If you're not high, you're still going to like it. You just may have some issues with the ending. And the funny part is, if you're high when you're watching this movie, you're going to probably quit doing drugs after the movie. No spoilers, but you're not going to trust your drug intake process anymore. That's part of the twist. I'll say that part.
All right. Okay.
So if you remember last week, we talked about movies that could probably possibly sneak into our top 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was top 3 that we talked about, but my top 3 movies right now, top 3 movies definitely are Avengers: Infinity War, Ready Player One, and Quiet Place. After that, it depends on how I feel. So, but I know Incredibles 2, I felt good about it, and I'm missing something.
Upgrade?
Yeah, Upgrade. Upgrade is in my top 5. So just 4 and 5, I'm not really sure on the order. I appreciate what movies could do with small budgets. I appreciate what this film could do with a limited release. I think you could tell it's not a huge budget, but they were very creative with the way that they filmed and edited this movie. So for that, I appreciate it. Did it sneak into my top 3 or top 5 though? That's the big question. And right now, I could say it didn't sneak into my top 5 this year. I thought it would, but that's fine. Just because if you look at the movies that I named, they're all solid. I would probably put this movie hovering around the 6th spot. Who knows? The more I see it, the more it might probably increase, because I do believe this is a movie that's going to get better over time. I do think there's enough quotable elements in this movie. This movie actually quotes my third favorite movie of all time, which is The Last Dragon. So there's a scene where they pay homage to that, and I think that is going to get some people to watch that film. So yeah, I think it'll get better over time, but definitely in my top 10 for sure. Like by the end of the year, I don't think it's moving out of my top 10, no matter how many films I see. So yeah, like that shows you how I feel about the movie.
Okay, cool. Like based on your assessment, I'll check it out. Maybe next week, or if not, then definitely when it comes out on digital.
And I'll say one thing. And it will move out. Their best element was the telemarketing scenes, but they stopped doing that after a while. Like I think that they thought the joke was the people using the white voices. They use that as a technique for the phone calls, because even the way they show the phone calls, which they show in the trailer, it's a creative way on how they show people entering your household. Now, the director, after a while, stopped doing the phone calls, and it was just use your white voice in conversation, which is funny, but it's like, nah, I think y'all needed to stick to the telemarketing scenes. Like, there's some union themes in this where they stop getting on the phones, and I'm like, they should have spent more time on the phones. Honestly, that could have been your movie, to be real. Like, that's hilarious, that's creative, it looks beautiful when y'all actually do the filming for that. But they stopped doing that after a while. So yeah, like, but solid comedy, solid dark comedy at that. It's freaking weird. It's weird. Just off the weirdness, the word of mouth is gonna spread. So, yeah, that's all I'll say. So, this movie is not getting Donkey of the Day. If you watch Breakfast Club, and if you watch the movie, you'll understand what that reference means. And why I'm choosing this movie to use that particular reference to. So, all in all, I want to hear about you guys. What did you think about this movie? If you saw it, how did you feel about that third act? If you're not seeing this movie, is there a small picture that may slip under the radar that you're anxious to see that other people may not be? So let me know that in the comment section as well. So I'm anxious to hear what other people thought about this. But all in all, guys, it's about that time. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. If you like what you heard, share it with a friend on Apple Podcasts or wherever you go for your podcast. Don't let this be the last time we hear from you or you hear from us. Support the show and become a sponsor by visiting our Patreon at www.patreon.com/CouchTomatoFilms. Also, join us next week and check the show notes on where to find us weekly. It's Couch Tomato Films on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and Couch Tomato Film on Twitter. Other than that, peace.